16th, 2016. If you want to follow us on Twitter, please go to CATEX TV. There are reports circulating in London that Anbang Insurance Group, as well as several competitors, are currently being examined by the Chinese insurance regulator. According to a respected Chinese regulatory website, the China Insurance Regulatory Commission has dispatched an investigation and research team to Anbang's offices to learn more about the company's finances. Other companies that are being investigated apparently include Funday Sino Life Insurance and at least one other group with ties to the central government. Apparently, the orders to investigate the insurers come from, quote, the highest echelons of the central government. Anbang, of course, has been on an overseas acquisition spree that included the $2 billion purchase of the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York, as well as an unsuccessful $14 billion bid for Starwood Hotels and Resorts. Recently, European regulators have blocked potential Chinese acquisitions of banks and insurers, in part out of concern over high debt levels. One analyst in Hong Kong said, referring to the Chinese insurers, when they say they want to be Warren Buffett, Chinese insurers mean they want to use other people's money, not to be value investors. Toronto headquartered credit rating company DBRS Limited has said that the total claims cost for the Fort McMurray wildfire could be between $2 billion and $6 billion Canadian. As of this morning, at least 2,400 structures, mainly homes, have been destroyed or damaged. DBRS is saying they expect no credit impact for major Canadian insurers as a result of the event because of the general practice by Canadian insurers to establish reinsurance programs for such events. Speaking of such reinsurance programs, Standard & Poor's is saying that reinsurers are expected to absorb about at least 50% of those up to $6 billion worth of losses for the Fort McMurray fire. Standard & Poor's is saying that at the lower range, the lower end of the range, the $2 billion range, they'll take up to 50% of the loss, but at the higher range, it could go up to as high as 70% of the loss. Artemis has been saying of late that, in fact, it will go as high as 70% if the claims total bears up. Artemis is also saying that if it reaches the 70% total, insurance-linked security funds are going to be tapped to pay for part of the loss as well. There was a 5.0 earthquake this morning in southern Israel. It struck about 25 kilometers northeast of Dabab in Egypt, near Eilat in Israel. It caused no damage, although there was shaking apparently in Tel Aviv. Israel is located along the Syrian-African fault line, which runs along the border between Israel and Jordan. In 1927, there was a 6.2 earthquake in the region that actually killed 500 people. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway's corporate disclosures on March 31st indicated that the company had purchased about $1 billion worth of stock in Apple. Apple, of course, is pivoting toward services and exploring new technologies such as self-driving cars in order to compensate for the decrease in the sales of iPhones. Buffett has typically shunned technology investments, although his two primary deputies now for investment, Ted Weschler and Todd Combs, have been building their own portfolios with small, quote-unquote, small bets of up to $1 billion that don't require Buffett's personal involvement. Apple stock rose about 2.2% after news of the Berkshire investment was released. Outgoing Lloyd's chairman John Nelson has called on the American government to stop providing residential flood insurance. This is according to the Financial Times. Nelson's argued that state support had become unsustainable, and worse, it's encouraged irresponsible home building. Lloyd said that Washington should be largely out of the risk-taking business and that the private sector should pick up the policies and bar some essentially uninsurable risks. However, one American insurance executive said that the wider industry was concerned that if the National Flood Insurance Program was scrapped, authorities could compel domestic insurers to provide flood cover. Nelson is quite correct. There has been an awful lot of irresponsible building going on in the United States in flood zones simply because of the fact that the insurance is mandated to be provided by the government. There's a front page article in today's New York Times talking about Venezuela being literally over the brink. The medical system in Venezuela, the hospital system in Venezuela is in complete disarray, and people are dying in hospitals simply for lack of basic necessities such as water. Nicolas Maduro, who is the president of Venezuela, on Friday declared a 60-day state of emergency, supposedly because of plots against Venezuela from the United States and from within the country to, quote, subvert him. Opposition forces, who polls indicate compose about 70% of the people, are against Maduro and want him out immediately. Maduro is saying that he intends to complete his term as president. As part of his state of emergency order, he immediately instituted military exercises to begin next weekend, and he also announced that the government is going to take over factories that have been closed due to the country's economic slowdown. Some of the threat that's inspiring grave concern comes after a fracas between the government and a company called Polar Group. Polar is the country's largest food and beverage distributor, and it stopped producing beer recently, blaming the government for meddling in the importation of the barley it needs. The company's owner is an outspoken critic of Maduro. The president recently accused him of paralyzing production and sabotaging Venezuela. Maduro said we must take all measures to recover productive capacities, which is being paralyzed by the bourgeois. Anyone who wants to halt production to sabotage Venezuela should get out, and those who do must be handcuffed and sent to jail. The country of Venezuela is sitting on top of the largest oil reserve cache in the world. And right now, the country is just about out of business. That's the news for today. If we have any breaking news, we'll come back and tell you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.